We have even more big names added to the Challenge Cup mix in the knockout stages. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. We already had some big clubs in this competition from the start of the season, but even more have dropped down from the Champions Cup. So it's going to be very competitive knockout stages. I think what we're going to do in this one is we're just going to go quickly through the results, have a look at the pools, then have a look at that draw for the knockout stages. So let me pull up the final round of results here. And as I said, we're just going to go through them. We're not going to talk about, who scored what, when, etc. the way we would normally do. Instead, we're just going to go through the actual results themselves. Okay, so we start with really good win for Dragons. Dragons RFC 35, Newcastle Red Bulls 12. Newcastle struggling in the Premiership, starting to get things together a little bit. Still a ways off there though, but really good in this competition. So the fact that the Dragons were able to produce this win just shows again that the Dragons are on their upward trend, and hopefully that continues for them, because it's really good to see. A team that we've seen struggle year after year in the URC, down there at the bottom of the table, either last or second last, and suddenly they've a bit of form, a bit of confidence, and yeah, it's great to see. But Dragons RFC 35, Newcastle Red Bulls 12 is the final score there. So that was the Friday game. Then on to Saturday game. So Ulster 26, Stade Francais Paris 19. So Ulster looked like they had this game sewn up at half time, and then second half, then they're basically clinging on as Stade produced a great comeback, but not enough to win the game. So a good win for Ulster, but that whole thing of, I'm pretty sure they didn't score a point in the second half, because it's 26-0 at half time. Yeah, and then so Ulster, they may have won the game, but that is a bit of a worry, that when you have such control in the game that you can lose it like that as well. So just shows there's still a bit more development to come in that Ulster team. Next then, Black Line 14, Zebre Parma 28. So Black Line, I saw this week rumours that Black Line are potentially the team that is going to replace whichever of the, I guess between Opsreys and Scarlets, right? Whichever those are cut by the WRU, for them to come into the URC. For me, I'm still hoping against hope that there's some miracle and we don't lose one of the Welsh teams, and we can find some way to bring Black Line in, maybe alongside somebody else, to make it even numbers. But those are discussions going on apparently at the moment, is for Black Line to come in. I think that would be brilliant for them. In terms of the URC, is it brilliant for the URC because you've got the negative of potentially losing a Welsh team and then gaining a team from Georgia? It's kind of, for me, it's kind of neutral. Again, I'd love to see some way of keeping the 4 Welsh regions and bringing in Black Line alongside maybe somebody else, maybe like the Cheetahs or the other invitational side in this competition. Maybe they could join as well. That would be, for me, would be perfect. But I'm always kind of an optimist on stuff like that. But Black Line 14, Zebre Parma 28. Zebre, another team like the Dragons, having a real resurgence in form around this competition as well, because they had the brilliant start to season, 2 wins, then into a real fallow period, but coming back into this competition has kind of lifted them again, so that's good to see. Next then we have Perpignan 20, Lions 20, so the very rare thing, a draw in rugby, and you've got like the Lions, that South African team that never quite hit the heights of the other teams, but they're always kind of thereabouts, but mostly missing out. So hopefully, with this as well, we talked about the preview that all of their good results have come in South Africa this year. So getting a draw away in Europe at least is an improvement from them. Perpignan 20, Lions 20. Connacht then, Connacht Rugby 75, US Montauban 14. So Connacht showing the heights they can reach and why they're so frustrating to their fans because of it. Because fans know that ceiling is there, but they also know that Connacht have a very low floor as well, and their performances and results kind of yo-yo in between both of those at the minute. But they finished the pool stages strongly there with a big win. Next then, Opsreys 26, Montpellier 31. So Montpellier, one of the standout teams in the pool stages. Ospreys though running them close. 7 points in it at half time, Montpellier leading, and then just 5 points in it at the death. But Montpellier, the ones who come out with the win there, and it was kind of like the last kind of, 20 odd minutes or something. I think Montpellier came back with a try or something to win it, and then a penalty as well, I think. But yeah, Ospreys, they haven't been having the best of seasons. They have had a little bit of a resurgence, but couldn't quite get the job done in that one. Next, then we have Exeter Chiefs 31, Cardiff Rugby 0. So Cardiff, the standout Welsh team so far this season in the URC, but not quite getting it done in the Challenge Cup here. But again, Exeter, one of the kind of the bigger names that came down, or didn't come down, but they are normally in the Champions Cup in here, and you can see that their total rebuild of that squad that they started a couple of seasons ago is beginning to kind of pay off a little bit, at least in this competition. Then we have Lyon Olympique Universitaire 19, Benetton Rugby 38. So, Lyon, their struggles kind of continue really. We talked about them being, finalist winners of this in the last few seasons, but this year they've just not been at the races. But Benetton, another URC team that have had a bit of resurgence in form recently, and it's a good away win for them. Then we have Racing 92, 31, Toyota Cheetahs 28. So the Cheetahs' final game, they had that game called off last week against Ulster, so they're, Ulster were awarded the bonus point win, as is the rule. But Cheetahs into the last game, and they almost beat Racing 92, and that would have been a brilliant end to the campaign for them. What otherwise has been kind of a disappointing campaign, but couldn't quite get it done. Would have been brilliant though to see that, because as one of the two invitational teams, I think any kind of result that they can get has to be considered to be a major success for them. So came very, very close to that against a big club like Racing 92. So those are results. Now let's have a look at how the pools finished. So most of the pools were kind of decided, or most of the places, should I say, were decided already coming into this round, and then we just had a few things to clear up, and they've obviously all been cleared up now. So in Pool 1, you have Montpellier, went perfect all the way through the pool, so 4 wins for 20 points, so bonus point in every game, and you can't ask much more than that. They'll feel confident of reaching at least a semi-final, if not a final, and lifting the trophy as well, I think, at the end. Zebre then doing so well to finish second in their pool, ahead of two teams who regularly finish above them in the URC as well. So that has to be considered a major win for them as well. 3 wins from their 4 games for 14 points. Connacht then, the up and down team, 2 wins from 2 is kind of on brand for them. and 13 points. Although normally, in fairness to Connacht, normally they do really well in the pool stages, and it's the fact it's that up and down performance that really kind of screws them over in the knockout stages, because they're not consistent enough to get through rounds of knockout rugby. Ospreys then in 4th place, 2 wins from their 4 as well for 13 points, but a worse points difference than Connacht. Then Black Line finishing 5th. So as an invitation team to not finish bottom of their pool is decent, and the fact that they also got 1 win from the 4 games again, is a good sign for them. I think 5 points for them, and then US Montauban finished bottom of the pool with 2 points and no wins. On to Pool 2 then. Benetton Rugby leading the way there. 4 wins from their 4 games, 19 points, so just missed out on 1 bonus point. Then second, Newcastle Red Bull, and they would have been kind of in the mix really to win the pool before that Dragons performance. But 3 wins from 4 for them for 13 points. Then the Dragons in 3rd place, 2 wins from the 4 games for 9 points. Perpignan next, so that draw with the Lions enough to send them through in place of the Lions. The Lions had won that, they would have actually qualified. But 1 win, 1 draw, 2 losses for 8 points. And the Lions, 1 win, 1 draw, and 2 losses for 8 points as well. And it's just a points difference. So 7 actual points scores between the teams. But obviously, given that they're playing each other in the last game, if the Lions had won even by a single point, that would have been enough to qualify them. But they couldn't quite get it done. And that's kind of been the story of the Lions since they joined the URC, and hopefully that is something that improves for them, next season. Then we have, or maybe even this season in the URC, we'd love to see them make the playoffs. Then we have Lyon, Olympique, Universitaire in 6th place. No wins for them and 2 points. And again, very, very strange, at least for me. I don't watch top 14, so I don't know why suddenly their form in this competition has completely gone off a cliff. But generally, they're very competitive at this level. On to the final pool then, Pool 3. Ulster topped the pool there. Having won that shootout against Stade to take that top spot. So 3 wins from the 4 games for 17 points, and then Stade 3 wins from their 4 games for 16 points. So obviously Stade were looking to be one of the top seeds by winning it in Belfast, but it didn't work out for them. They gave it a good try though in the second half, but just left themselves too much, I think. Exeter then in 3rd place, 2 wins and a draw from their 4 games, 14 points for them. Then Cardiff next in 4th place, 2 wins from 4 and for 10 points. So, lucky for them that heavy defeat to Exeter didn't affect their qualification. And then Racing then, because this was the pool that was already decided anyway. After round 3, neither Racing or Toyota Cheetahs could qualify, and they're playing each other in the final round. And then Racing 92 finished 5th with 8 points, and the Cheetahs, they're in 6th place, no wins for them, and 2 points. Okay, so that's our pool. And now let's have a look at the road to Bilbao, as they've titled it here. Let me just pull it up. Don't know why, I said it in the Champions Cup thing as well. I don't know why they can't just show it on their website instead of making you kind of click into their Instagram or wherever. But here we have here, so the left side of the draw, you have number 1 seeds Montpellier. They're going to be playing against Perpignan, so an all French clash there. And then we have an all we have an all URC clash, Connacht versus Hollywood Bet Sharks. So the Sharks won this competition a few seasons ago, and that was brilliant to see. We'd hoped, at least I'd hoped, that they'd kick on from there in terms of the performances in the URC. They did make a playoff in the URC, but this season again kind of disappointing, and disappointing in the Champions Cup where they dropped down from. But if they could get through that Connacht clash and get into a quarter final, maybe we see them taking it seriously, and then maybe we see another run to the final, potentially lift the trophy. But yeah, all French clash versus all URC clash there. Then in the bottom half of the draw, we have Stade Francais, and they're playing the Dragons. So big ask for the Dragons, I think, to go there and win that one. Love to see it, but they'd really have to produce their best performance of the season, I think, to do that. Then at the bottom of the draw, we have Zebre Parma versus Pau. So Pau, another team dropping down from the Champions Cup. Zebre, I think, would fancy themselves to win that one, and if they can, into semi-final away to Stade again. Well, potentially, obviously, it could be the Dragons. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? The Dragons and Zebre, the two, at least not this season, but in past seasons, the two kind of perennial basement dwellers from the URC into a European quarterfinal. That would just underline the improvement both teams have made. Like Zebre, I think more so in that they've been doing a season on season. The Dragons just kind of this season for them, but still it would be amazing to see. Then we go to the right hand side of the draw. We have Benetton Rugby versus Cardiff Rugby. So Benetton, who've done really well in this competition, Cardiff going really well in the URC, and that should be a hell of a clash there to make the quarterfinals. And they will face off against the winner of Exeter Chiefs versus Munster Rugby, and that's kind of a fixture that you in recent years at least you would be more likely to see in the round of 16 of the Champions Cup rather than the Challenge Cup. So a good chance for one of those two teams to make a quarterfinal, and then I think from there, both teams would kind of would feel that they could go to either Benetton or Cardiff and potentially put in a performance to get through. So I don't think they would fear being away in a quarterfinal, but whether not having fear is enough to get through is another thing. There's a reason why both of these teams are in this competition this at the moment, and why they're on the away side of that part of the draw as well. So I think if Benetton and I think Cardiff as well get through, you'd have to make them certainly favourites, maybe just slight favourites to win, but still home advantage I think has a big part to play in that. Then the bottom part of this draw, you got Ulster Rugby versus Opsreys, another all URC clash there, and they'll be facing off against the winners of Newcastle Red Bulls and La Rochelle. So Newcastle's reward for being one of the standout teams really in the pool stages is a home game against La Rochelle. That's going to be a massive game for them as well, because La Rochelle obviously more used to progressing in the Champions Cup, and the fact that they're in this competition at all is a bit of a shock. So I think that's going to be a massive game, and if La Rochelle really bring it, they definitely could get through there, and then the potential then for an maybe Ulster La Rochelle clash in the quarterfinal. And then could you imagine, you've got Ron O'Gara there as a manager of La Rochelle. Could you imagine if Munster were able to win an away round of 16 game and then an away quarterfinal at the same as La Rochelle, and then both of them meet up in a semi-final? Like, if that happened, you'd have to say it was kind of written in the stars that the two of them had to clash this season in the competition. But there's a lot of rugby to be played before that. If we look at the seedings, you're basically looking, if everything went by seedings. On the left-hand side of the draw, you're looking at a quarter-final between Montpellier and Connacht, and Stade Francais and Zebre. And then on the right-hand side, Benetton versus Exeter in one quarter-final, Ulster versus Newcastle in the other quarter-final. And then your semi-finalists would be Montpellier versus Stade and Benetton versus Ulster. And then again, only going by the seedings, you would have a Montpellier versus Benetton final, and that would be some achievement for Benetton. You know, they won the Rainbow Cup there during the COVID period, but because it was during the COVID period, it's not really as lauded as I think it should be. The fact that, you know, a team from Italy, a team who used to be in the position where Zebre were for the past few years of being seen as an easy touch for, you know, not just the big teams in the league, but all of the teams in the league, you know, would send over the kids or wherever and beat them with a bonus point. And they won that competition, you know, and I think if it hadn't been behind closed doors, it would have been kind of more celebrated than it was. But an amazing achievement for them. And then if they could get into the final of this competition and potentially lift the trophy, again, it would just show, you know, that the kind of the naysayers about Italian rugby will kind of prove them wrong as well. But again, a lot of rugby to be played by then. We also know that generally, not always, but generally in European competition, about 1 in 4 teams in the round of 16 will win away. So, you know, so out of this, like there's 8 clashes. So you're kind of on average expecting 2 clashes to be won by away teams. Now, it is averages, so it means that you can have, like, because we've had sweeps in the past couple of years in one or other of the competitions. So you could have all 18 home teams winning. You could have 4 away teams winning as well. But like that's the great thing I think about rugby, is that it's not played on paper looking purely at seedings. You have to go out there. You have to win the right to progress, and sometimes the lower seed team are just up for it a bit more than the home team, and they get through, and that's what we love to see in rugby. But that's your pool stage is done, and that's your draw, and we look forward to the rest of the competition.